Okay. All right. Welcome everybody to the Parsha class. Today's Parsha is Va'et Chanan, and we like to start every Parsha with sort of the Parsha in a nutshell. This Parsha is hard to really narrow down into a nutshell. So what I'll say is, in the musical world, a band, a group can have a singer can have a number of different albums, and this one has this song and that one has that song, and every once in a while they come up with a compilation called the greatest hits. So in a way, and this is not to compare it to any other parsha, but Va'et Chanan in a way is sort of the greatest hits of the Torah. A lot of the concepts of Judaism are in this parsha, including one we mentioned last week, Ein Od Milvado, the concept that there is nothing besides Hashem. Hashem is our all. He is our everything. He is what we stream towards, and all of our efforts are focused on Him. The Shema Yisrael is in this week's parsha. The Ten Commandments are in this week's parsha. The concepts about prayer and kindness. Literally, this parsha has it all. It is, it is in a way the greatest hits. If you're going to only learn one parsha in the Torah to really get to understand Jewish philosophy, this might be the one. That's basically the parsha in a nutshell. In terms of story, there isn't really much story there. Again, this is still a continuation of Moshe's final speech. He's still talking about different things that the Jewish people did and that he did right and wrong on their travels in the desert. The Moshe very much wanted to lead the Jewish people into Israel. When he saw that that wasn't a possibility, he prayed. That's the beginning of the parsha. That's what Erchanan means. It means I prayed to be able to see the land, and we'll discuss very shortly why that would be any kind of compensation. Why seeing the land would be so important. Just a moment. Ah,
Hey.
thank you very much. Okay. All right. So, with no further ado, let's do a deep dive into the parsha. Share my screen. There we are. See, I'm getting better at this. I knew it would happen one of these days. Okay. All right. So, the first question that I sent out in the email, and if you're not getting the emails, let me know. The first and the source sheet is also kind of helpful. Besides, it's useful in this class. You might be able to use it on your own, peruse it at your leisure. Okay, so um, says Moshe, chapter 3, verse 25 in Devarim, in Deuteronomy. Moshe prays, please let me cross over to the good land, to the other side of the Jordan, to the good Har, mountain, hill, and Har Hatov, Hazeh v'Halavanon, and to the Lebanon, to the Lebanon. So, why does Moshe even want to see the land at all? So, what's the point of seeing the land? So, the Gemara says an interesting thing. So, the Gemara in Sota 14a has this explanation from Rav Simlai. Moshe Rabenu lichanes leEretz Israel. Why would Hashem? Why would Moshe so much want to go into Eretz Israel? Did he go to? He really wanted to eat its fruit. Did he? Did he need to tzarich ulisavo mitova? Did he want to enjoy the good of the land, the clean, fresh air? You know, there are a lot of reasons to love Eretz Israel. There's a lot of good there, But is that what Moshe wanted? Moshe just wanted to go to Israel to eat the delicious food there. He really wanted to go to a good shawarma stand. Is that what's going on? So it says the Gemara, no. What did he want? Tach Amar Moshe. This is what Moshe said. Harba mitzvot nitztaul Israel. There's a lot of mitzvot that were given to the Eretz Israel. It can only be fulfilled in Eretz Israel. Eretz Israel is a land of mitzvot. There are certain mitzvot you cannot fulfill anywhere else. This is we're coming up to a Shemitah year in Israel, for instance. That's not a mitzvah you can really fulfill anywhere else. You can support, you can try to help, but in terms of actually fulfilling the mitzvah of being a farmer, having land, and not working that land, to not work the land, you cannot do anywhere else. You can only do that in Eretz Israel to fulfill the mitzvah.
Rabbi, is there?
So says Moshe Rabenu, "Akanes ani la'aretz kedei litkayemu kulan al yadai." So I want to enter the land so that I can be able to fulfill the mitzvot. And he's sort of implying, by the way, there's an implicit implication, as implications go, that he's implying that he wants to really do mitzvot and get their reward, which is a problem. Why is that a problem? The problem is because we have a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot from Antigonos Ish Socho. He said, "Al tiyu kavadim hamishamshin et harav al menat lekabel pras." Don't be like a servant who serves his master in order to receive a reward. Ele havu kavadim hamishamshin et harav shelo al menat lekabel pras. You should be a servant, indeed. Don't not be a servant, but don't be a servant to receive reward. Be a servant who will indeed even not to receive a reward. It's interesting. Just anecdotally, I work in a kitchen some of my time, and I see a lot of different people with lots of different work ethics. There are those kinds of people who work only to make their money. They're there for their shift. They take their breaks when they're supposed to take their breaks. They do what they're supposed to do, and they don't do anything extra. They're not going to go out and see who else needs their help, what else needs to be done. They'll only do exactly what needs to be done. It's not bad. I mean, they're doing their job, right? And then there's those people who have such a strong work ethic, and we don't have anything to do. They go out and look for more work. They wash an extra dish. There's a dish that's not so clean, so they give it an extra scrubbing or whatever. There's a different kind of work ethic. And what the Mishnah here is telling you, that when you're serving Hashem, don't have the work ethic of I just did what I had to do. I got my reward. Good. The last four words of the Mishnah say, "Yihi mora shamayim aleichem." You should have the awe of heaven upon you. Right? You're supposed to always be cognizant of the fact that your master is not just going to reward you. That's in and of itself true. You have an awesome master that you should want to do more for, and that's the idea. So then the question becomes, the Maharsha asks this question, if that's true, and I don't have the source here, I apologize. If that's true that Moshe Rabenu it's such a, we'd assume he's that kind of a servant who would serve Hashem without a reward. Why here is he asking for a reward, or basically implying that he should get one? So it's an interesting thing that the Maharsha writes, and this is maybe relevant to all of us, is that it's true that you shouldn't seek reward if you're already commanded to do the mitzvah. In other words, you have the mitzvah of saying Shema. We said Shema this morning. What's my reward? You shouldn't ask for that. You shouldn't even be thinking about that. You should be so happy to have the opportunity to say the Shema. However, if you were not commanded to do the mitzvah yet, the mitzvah is not even yours yet, then it's okay to want a reward. It's perfectly within your right to want a reward for something you weren't even commanded to do. Right? It's because reward is part of the mitzvah. The schar is connected to the action. So Moshe Rabenu is not commanded to do the mitzvot of Eretz Israel because he was told he's not going into Eretz Israel. Moshe Rabenu cannot ask, say, please, please, Hashem, let me go into Eretz Israel and do the mitzvot there and get the reward there, because he hasn't been commanded to do them yet. So it's okay at that point for him to ask for this reward, says the Maharsha, as opposed to if you were commanded to go to Eretz Israel, if you were commanded to do the mitzvot, at that point you shouldn't ask for the reward. So that's an interesting explanation of this Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. Moshe asked to see two things specifically: Ahar Hatov Hazeh, this good mountain, this good hill, and he says V'Halevanon. He wants to see Lebanon. Apparently it's a mountain range, right? The Lebanon mountains. Is that what he wants to see? He's so eager to see. He's a tourist. And which good mountain are we talking about? So everybody says, obviously, the good mountain is Har HaMoriah, Yerushalayim, right? The mountain where the Beit HaMikdash would be built. Very nice. That's what Rashi says right here. Hatov, Har Hatov Hazeh, Zo Yerushalayim. This is Yerushalayim, Jerusalem. This is that's the good land. That's the good mountain that Moshe Rabbeinu wants to see. All right, Halavanon. What is the Lebanon? What is this? Why is he so anxious to see the mountain range? Says Rashi, Halavanon Zeh Beit HaMikdash. He quotes this from the Mishnah. So the Lebanon is the Beit HaMikdash. How is the Lebanon the Beit HaMikdash? So Rashi does not explain that. He just says it as a given that it is what it is, and take it for what it is. All right, so that's sorry. The first one apparently was from Sifrei in Bamidbar, and the second one is from Sifri. Anyway, so he's quoting the Midrashim. Either way, the Gur Aryeh has a long piece here. We're going to try to get through it quite quickly. We probably won't quote the entire thing. Gur again is the Maharal's commentary on Rashi, written about 400 years ago or so. So Har Hatov Hazeh Nikra Yerushalayim Har Hatov. The Yerushalayim is called the good mountain, the good hill. Why? And the Beit HaMikdash is called Levanon. It's called Levanon, and now he's going to explain why that's true. Nivdal Gebahoto Uvaramoto Mishar Haaretz. In its greatness, in its reputation, and in its size, mountains receive more of a name in comparison to other mountains. In other words, through their size. Why do you know? Why might somebody know Mount Everest? Because it's the biggest mountain in the world. Why might people know Mount Kilimanjaro? Also, it's a very big, very grandiose mountain. Right? Mountains aren't known of their small pitscalas that nobody's ever heard of before. Even in San Diego, right? Cowles Mountain, which is the largest mountain in the city, not county, city of San Diego, not very far away from Mount Helix, which is way bigger, but not in the city of San Diego. One moment. So it's known because it's big, because you have a nice huge view of the city from a tall mountain. Do you know the smaller mountains around Cowles Mountain? Well, some people do, Palos Peak or whatever. I learned from my daughter this summer, but most people don't know these other names because they're not as big. So mountains get their name from how big they are. Har Hatov Hazeh, Yerushalayim is the good mountain because it is higher, it is greater than the other mountains. Yerushalayim is grandiose. Yerushalayim is amazing and wonderful. It's Yerushalayim. It's the good mountain, like that. That's where its goodness comes from, not from it's it's it looks pretty or something like that. It's a great place. It's because of the things that are done there and because of its esteem, because of its reputation. Ken Yerushalayim Nika Romamoto Bein Shar L'Shuv Haaretz. Its greatness gives it its reputation more than any other place in the land. Or Beit Hamikdash b'tocho, and the Beit Hamikdash is within it. Medame Levanon. It's comparable to the Lebanon. What does that mean? Shu Makom al Har Motzi Ilanot. It's famous for, right? What's the Lebanon mountains famous for? For the trees that are on top of it that rise even higher. These huge, tall Lebanon trees, the cedars of Lebanon, go way up higher than the mountains themselves. The Ilanot Hein Nikrim Lebanon, and the mountains, the trees themselves are called Lebanon, the cedars of Lebanon. Veheim Navdilin Min Haaretz Legamri. They extend past the land itself. Ken Beit Hamikdash hu nivdal min hamakom haaretz b'kedushato. The Beit Hamikdash that was on top of this great mountain called Yerushalayim, its holiness raises it up even higher. It's nivdal, it's separate, it's greater. So too, other structures become secondary to the Beit Hamikdash. You can build up a great palace, a great museum, a great hotel in Yerushalayim, and it's not going to be comparable to the Beit Hamikdash because of its greatness. So too the Levanon, which are these trees on top of these tall mountains, are separate from the mountain. They extend. They're obvious, and they are noticeably greater. So too the Beit Hamikdash is the place Adam Shechata, a man who sins. Shenata Echad Yetzer Shel Chumro Makom Hazeh Shehu Nivdal B'Kedushato Min Haaretz. In this place that's extended and rises above all other places. That's the place where a person who has sinned can regain the connection to Hashem, can regain the inspiration necessary to become a great person again, as we were created to be. So nobody's left alone. Nobody's gone. Nobody's left as roadkill. Our path through our path through the world includes all the Jewish people. And they all have the opportunity to gain back their holiness and become great again through the powers of the Beit Hamikdash. It, after all, it has the holiness of Hashem Himself infused into it. But now that we don't know it, right? Okay, that's a different discussion for another time. All right. This pasuk that we're going to skip to, chapter 4, verse 6, has a lot of commentary on it. It's a very strange verse, and let's see why. It says, "Ushmartem v'asitem kihi chachmatchem." It's talking about the chukim, right? Binatchem le'enei ha'amim. If you fulfill all of the chukim, if you fulfill all of the laws, which we're going to translate chukim as decrees that don't have a necessarily understandable reason, right? Later on in the parsha, for instance, we have the mitzvah of kibud av v'em, of honoring your mother and father, which most commentaries explain is a simple mitzvah, the simplest mitzvah, says the Gemara. Most commentaries explain, why is it so simple? Because we understand it. Hakarat Tov, we owe our parents, and we've discussed this before, we owe our parents, or at least we owe most of our parents gratitude. They took care of us, they fed us, they clothed us, they gave us an education, etc. So because of that, we owe our parents some sort of gratitude. We understand the mitzvah of kibbud av va'em. Even Gentiles have the mitzvah, even if they don't have the mitzvah necessarily as a mitzvah, but even Gentiles have this concept of honoring their parents, honoring their ancestors. That's pretty universal. But here we're saying that if you keep ushmartem, you guard them, v'asitem, and you perform these chukim, they are proof of your chachma. They are proof of your bina. They are proof of your wisdom. They're proof of your intelligence. Le'einei ha'amim, in the eyes of the nations. Asher yishmun et kol chukim, in your keeping of when they hear of your chukim ha'ela v'amru rak am chacham navon hagoy hagadol hazeh. And they're going to say, well, how amazing, how smart, how intelligent is this great nation. In other words, if we keep the chukim, there'll be an end of anti-Semitism. You won't need any rallies like we'll have on Sunday. You won't have any. You won't need to write any books or anything else. If the Jews keep the chukim, all of the Gentiles who will observe us will realize that we're a great nation. What? The chukim? You mean like Para Aduma? You mean like the unexplainable decrees that we usually translate chok? That's going to show our wisdom? How? How is that even possible? So, like I said, there's a lot of commentary on this. I just want to share the thoughts here of the Katav Sofer, the son of the Chacham, the Chatam Sofer. So he writes here, Tzarech lehavin, he quotes the pasuk in full. He says, Tzarech lehavin, kishishmu'un et hachukim yomru rak am chacham nevaon. We have to understand how is keeping the chukim going to be the thing that people call us wise. In other words, just so we understand the question, us keeping other mitzvot, us teaching the world wisdom, intelligence, insights, and concepts. By doing that, I can understand why people might think that we're smart. We're teaching them smart things. They're becoming smarter thanks to our intelligent, amazing Torah. But if we're doing things that we ourselves don't understand because they're chukim, we ourselves don't understand, we can come up with reasons, and maybe in coming up with reasons, maybe that shows some of our intelligence. But if we're keeping the chukim that don't make any sense necessarily, the para aduma, the chok of chukim, right? What's the para aduma? The para aduma is if somebody has tumat met, has the impurity of death, which itself is not explainable to most people. If we have this tuma, there's a whole ceremony in which part of the ceremony is the burning of a purely red cow that has never been worked, doesn't have any other colors in it, etc., etc. You burn this cow to ash. You combine this ash with other things, and then you pour it onto the person who has this impurity. Now, all of a sudden, okay, not even all of a sudden, but after a few days, mikveh, etc., the person becomes pure. What? That makes sense? That shows how smart we are? That's going to show the rest of the world how smart we are if we do this? That's hard to explain, right? So says the Katav Sofer. Nearly. Im mishi osa kol ma'asav b'chachma u'behaskil b'dat. You've got somebody who acts in a proper, smart, intelligent way. Right? Everything you've seen this person do makes sense, logical, organized, right? An intelligent person. Well dressed, I don't mean well-dressed, I mean fancy, I mean put together, right? Somebody's put together, they make smart decisions, they're intelligent, they're money-wise, they don't say ridiculous things, they don't open up their mouth when they don't have to. An intelligent person. He has chachma, he has seichel, he has da'at. Now, imroim imenu pam achad davar shenira she'enu davar chachma. If there's one time you see this person do something that's not necessarily smart, you don't know why this person's doing it. Lo omru alav shelo nachon b'hamasa. You won't say this is an incorrect action. You just don't understand it. Here's a smart person, otherwise put together, otherwise intelligent, otherwise a genius. All of a sudden, they're doing something weird. We don't say, this person's doing something weird, so he must have been stupid all along. Okay, I don't understand it. When somebody's intelligent, somebody's living an intelligent life, every once in a while, doing something that other people don't understand won't cause people to say, this person's a fool. He has some reason, she has some reason to do what this person is doing. So we don't, because it was a short time, we didn't get a chance to ask. We don't know why this person is doing what they're doing. By the way, if you know if you can imagine such a situation, if you can imagine such a scenario where you see an intelligent person doing something that you don't understand, and you'd like to understand it, most intelligent people don't mind if you ask, right? You see somebody in the morning not wearing tefillin when they're usually wearing tefillin or something like that. It's okay to ask, hey, if I may ask, why aren't you wearing tefillin? Usually there's going to be a logical reason, like maybe he's having his tefillin checked. Maybe he's already davened. Who knows? I don't know the reason. Yeah, obviously there's a million different possible situations. Maybe this person was about to put on their tefillin and noticed there was a problem, or needed to go to the restroom, or whatever. Right? There's any number of reasons. Aval b'mi shelo noda chachmato ein lo yad Shem v'nevonim miyad yidonim oto hu siflus osa. Siflut osa. So, as opposed to somebody who's always weird, who's always walking around in rumpled clothing, even though they have an iron and they should theoretically know how to use it. Somebody who's not put together, somebody who does silly things, somebody who's always disorganized, always late, always disheveled, the house is a mess, etc., etc. When a person like that makes a mistake, so you say, okay, so this person's making a mistake like they usually do. So when they're doing something weird, it's like, okay, that fits into the other weird stuff this person does. When someone acts weird, in other words, we think they are crazy, right? Altogether mixed up. When a smart person does something weird, it might be a quirk, but we assume it's somehow related to the intelligence of this person. Since people are familiar with our wisdom, says the Ktav Sofer, since we see in general that we Jewish people do things smartly, we're dressed properly, we act in a way that makes sense usually. So when they see us doing a chok that they don't understand, they will chalk it up as something intelligent, part of something that we do because we are smart. And that'll be a Kiddush Hashem. That'll be an opportunity for us to show the greatness of Hashem and His Torah, which doesn't always make sense even to us, but when we do it, it leads to good things because Hashem told us to do it. It's Hashem's guide to life, not some human author with his own her own foibles and errors and mistakes. It's Hashem's wisdom. He knows how we're supposed to live our lives, and Hashem created a book to tell us how to do things, and that book has in it things that we don't completely understand. We call those things chukim. When we perform them alongside the good things that we do, the mitzvot that we do, the ethics in business, the kindness to strangers, the charity to the poor, all the other mitzvot that we do understand, when the Gentiles see us do those and add to that the chukim that we don't understand, they will see the greatness of our Torah and the greatness of our people. That's the idea. Al Yidei Zeh, concludes the K'tav Sofer, Yidbarer lahem biyoter chachmatenu v'nifla shehi chachmat Elokai. They'll see our chachma, and they'll be amazed by the chachma of Hashem. From the chukim that they don't understand, because we don't understand, because their chukim aren't meant to be necessarily understood. All right. The next piece, you have to understand the context here for a moment. The psukim before chapter 4, verses 21 through 22, which we were about to read. The verses before deal with avoda zara. The details of avoda zara, certain things you're not supposed to do, and how disgusting avoda zara is to Hashem. Avoda zara is usually translated as idol worship. And the conclusion of the verse, after this verse, after chapter 4, verse 21, we have more about avoda zara, and actually quite some detail. It talks about what not to make representations of. You're not supposed to draw human figures, etc., etc. So I'm not going to get into too much of the halachot of this, but this might help. Okay, sorry about that. I'm not going to get into too much of the halachot about these things, but we do have laws about what we can and cannot represent. We're not supposed to have even pictures of people like Moshe Rabenu and things like that. We're not supposed to think that we know what such a person looks like. And even if we did know what the person looked like, we shouldn't have a representation of it because of the fear that we might worship the image, like the icons of the in the Christian world, the statues and such like that. So we don't do that. The sun, the moon, the stars, other creatures. We don't have 3D. We're not supposed to make 3D representations of these. Certainly not accurate ones. Modern art might be an interesting question. We're not going to, like I said, get into the halakha right now. But anyway, so sandwiched in between all these laws of avoda zara, Moshe Rabenu tells us, "Hashem hitanaf bi." Hashem became angry with me al divrechem because of what you did. V'shava livilti avri et hayarden livilti bo el haaretz hatova she'Hashem elokecha noten lecha nachala. And he forbade me. He swore that I would not cross the Jordan River to the good land that he promised you. Ki anochi meit ba'aretz hazot. I will die in this land. And any over et hayarden, I will not travel over the Jordan River. Vatem overim, but you, in other words, you Jewish people, you will pass over the Jordan River. V'yirishtem et ha'aretz hatovah hazot, and you will inherit this good land. The Meshech Chochmah, we like to quote the Meshech Chochmah at least once a week. So he asks the question, brilliant question. What does this have to do with avodah zara? Like I told you in the introduction, avodah zara, avodah zara, avodah zara. Hashem got angry with me, and now I can't go into the good land that he promised you. Avodah zara, avodah zara, avodah zara. And it's what? He didn't get angry with the Jewish people because of avodah zara, right? He got angry with the Jewish people. Moshe Rabenu the sin that Moshe Rabbeinu was involved in, and that the Jewish people complained about the water. What does that have to do with avoda zara? Does it have anything to do with avoda zara? It says the Meshech Chochmah, and I've mentioned this in passing to a few people here and there. I think this is the key to understanding what the sin of Mei Merivo is really all about. Meshech Chochmah says, quotes the Gemara. Quotes the Gemara. Okay, 1 second. So the third line here, Mipnei Mashe Mima'arev Uba Mizrach Im Alkim Hu Ukorchach. Sorry, Al Korchach Shehu Muchrach Kamosh Shava'arti. That's something else to explain. Nimtza. I think I have the wrong piece here. 1 moment. Technical difficulties. Please stand by. Yeah. Okay. Good. Right. Okay. Here we go. So the why was Moshe Rabbeinu forbidden from crossing into Eretz Israel? So there are a number of reasons. We've quoted some of them. One of the reasons we don't talk about very much is that Hashem wanted Moshe Rabbeinu to die in a place where he would not be idolized, where he would not have the grave of Moshe Rabbeinu. Just imagine, we already have graves of tzaddikim, and some of them are treated a little, maybe perhaps with too much, I don't want to say reverence, because they're supposed to be treated with reverence, but to treat them as to pray to them, etc., becomes can become sort of a problem. So Moshe led the Jewish people through the desert using miracles, using nisim. Now, those Jews who were alive at the time, at the beginning of Yetziat Mitzrayim, they recognized, they could probably have no doubt at some point that Moshe Rabbeinu's miracles were not Moshe Rabbeinu's miracles. They were Hashem's miracles performed through Moshe Rabbeinu. As such, Moshe Rabbeinu is just a conduit for Hashem's nisim, for Hashem's miracles. However, this current generation were people who were not there. Remember, because all adult males ages 20 to 60 died in the desert, and plenty of other people too died in the desert who were, it was just their time, men, women, right? And so many of the people who witnessed Hashem's obvious miracles, the man and the splitting of the sea and the 10 plagues, who witnessed that was obviously Hashem and not Moshe, most of those people have died away. And so all the people who are left, all they see is that Moshe can do things. Moshe's got miracle powers. Moshe is the magic man. So if that's the case, so they're going to worship him more than he should be. And if Hashem allows Moshe to go into Eretz Israel, Moshe himself would become an avoda zara. Moshe himself would become a cult, and that would be a problem. We already have enough people in our history who, because of great things they did or were supposedly they did, became idolized and became objects of worship, and that's a problem. Whole religions have been started because of this, and even in our own faith, there's a problem. I mean, I'm not gonna not going to go into details, but they're you can think of them on your own. We in Judaism have certain holy places. I'll just say this. I'll probably get some hate mail or whatever for it. We have holy places. We have the Beit Hamikdash. We have Yerushalayim. Right. To me, Uman is not a holy place. Okay, it's great people have lived there. Great people. Great people have lived there. Great people whose kvarim should be visited are buried there. No question. But I'm not sure it's the place to go to celebrate a Rosh Hashanah, for instance. That we have a place where we're supposed to go to celebrate Rosh Hashanah, a comfortable shul, your community, or go to Eretz Israel, the Makom HaMikdash. We have holy places. Okay, I've said enough. That's gonna get me in hot water. All right, so let's go further. Anyway, the point is we don't want to idolize anybody. Even Moshe Rabenu himself was almost idolized, and we have to avoid that at all costs. We're gonna skip quite a bit. Like I said, it's a very long parsha. I didn't really say that before. There's a lot in it. We're going to skip to the. We've, by the way, skipped pretty much all of the Aseret HaDibrot, all of the Ten Commandments. We've mentioned avoda zara, of course, but there's a lot to say about the Ten Commandments. We're going to leave that for now. Maybe if there's time, I'll mention an interesting thing I heard from in the name of the Brisker Rav at the end, if there's time. Looks like we might have some time. We're going to focus on the Shema. We have, many of you know, we have a class, Shabbat afternoons in Ein Yaakov, which is the stories of the Gemara and some explanations. And one of the things we're learning about quite a bit is how saying Shema is a protection. You're supposed to say Shema in the morning. You're supposed to say Shema in the evening. The Gemara says in Brachot that it's like a double-edged sword when you say Shema at night. It protects you from bad thoughts. It protects you from dangerous elements. So Shema is a protection. Happens to be, I heard this week in the Tisha B'Av program on Torah Anytime from Chazak. I heard Rabbi Pesach Krohn mention that the Shema has in it 6 words. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Also, Baruch Shem has 6 words. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Li'olam Va'ed. So those 6 are reminiscent. He said, I forget who he quotes it in the name of, but I'm quoting it in his name. So he quoted somebody who said that there are also 6 cities of refuge in this week's Parsha. That's another connection. We have 6 cities of refuge. You have 6 words in the Shema. And what are the 6 cities of refuge? They're protection for somebody who's running away from the blood relative of somebody whom he killed accidentally. So it's a protection. So these 6 protect. So the 6 words of the Shema protect. What he didn't say, and maybe his source said it, and maybe it just wasn't relevant to his audience, but since I mentioned it, the Gemara doesn't call the Shema a sword, it calls it a double-edged sword. So that's maybe why there's 6 in Shema and 6 words in Baruch Shem, because they act as protection on both ends. So maybe that's a chidush, or maybe that's something that's mentioned in the source, but that's just something worth noticing. All right, the next verse in Shema is, I want to say a word that means significant, but also more than significant. I don't know. It is the crux of Judaism. It is such an important thing. V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. You're supposed to love Hashem, your God, b'chol levavcha, with all your heart, b'chol nafshecha, with all your soul. V'chol me'odecha. Ramban says from the word me'od, from your lot, from the many things that you have. You're supposed to love Hashem with all of your things. So the Chidushei Arim quotes the famous Gemara in Brachot 54, Nun Daled, where it says, Darshu Chazal afilu hu notal et nafshecha. So it means that you're supposed to, the Gemara explains, that how much are you supposed to love Hashem? Kol nafshecha, with all your heart. Meaning you're supposed to be willing to give up your life for Hashem. And as we know halachically, there are certain mitzvot that you're supposed to give up your life in order to serve Hashem. These are, of course, when they're done in even in private. I'll explain in a moment. In other words, we have the three the three mitzvot gemurot, right? The averot gemurot, the three terrible sins of shifut damim, of gilui arayot, and avoda zara. So idol worship, as we mentioned before, murder, and sexual immorality. Those three things you're supposed to be willing to give up your life, even in private, to avoid. Which means what? Which means if somebody says to you, gives you a gun, somehow doesn't let you aim it back at them and says, shoot this other person or I will shoot you, you're supposed to say, I'm supposed to give up my life for this person. I cannot break this avera to even at the cost of my life. As opposed to if that person were to give you a ham sandwich and put a gun to your head and said, eat this ham sandwich or I will kill you. You're supposed to eat the ham sandwich. That's a mitzvah. You're supposed to save your life. It's that important that we don't give up our lives for that, unless, and this is what I was alluding to earlier, unless it's in public. Let's say you have a whole minion of men surrounding you. You have a whole city watching you, and they put a gun to your head and they say, "Wear shatnez or I will kill you." You're supposed to say, "Let me be killed. I'm not going to make a chilul Hashem in public." So that's the that's Gemara in Sanhedrin. That's a halacha as it's brought down. That's what it means to love Hashem. You're supposed to be willing to give up your life. Okay, so that's the Gemara that the Chidushei Arim quotes. Continues the Chidushei Arim. Mikan. From this you learn B'chol levavcha. So what's the phrase? If B'chol nafshecha means I'm supposed to be willing to give up my life. B'chol levavcha means you're supposed to be willing to give up your heart. What does it mean to give up your heart? Afilu hu notel et levavecha. Even if you have to give up the things you care about. You're supposed to care about Hashem more than the things you care about. You care about baseball, you care about music, you care about your friends, your family, your community. You're supposed to care about Hashem more. This is a very high level, I understand. Don't get me wrong. This is something we're supposed to be working towards. He continues, Hainu. Sometimes a person doesn't feel the desire, the need to serve Hashem. Nevertheless, Adam avoda et Hashem yitbarach, Hashem yitbarach, yemo shehu. You're still supposed to serve Hashem. We're not serving Hashem because we like it. We're not serving Hashem because we feel good about it. Even when you don't feel good about it, even if you're not in the mood, even when you're shuled out or whatever, you're still supposed to serve Hashem because it's not for Him that you're doing it. It's not for you how you feel that you're doing it. You're doing it because you gave up your heart to Hashem. V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha b'chol nafshecha. You're supposed to give, just like you're supposed to be willing to give up your life for Hashem. You're equally supposed to give up your wants for Him. I don't know. Should I go to the baseball game or should I go to the minyan? Baseball game's pulling me. I don't know why, but it is. I really want to see that person throw a ball and that person with a stick hit it. That's really important to me. And if that's important to you, I'm kind of okay. I'm sort of mocking you here, but I granted. But whatever
Someone doesn't like baseball.
to submit them under the rule of what Hashem wants. And Hashem will give you opportunities to watch, play, talk about baseball. They're not supposed to interrupt your service of Him. A minyan, a chavruta, etc., etc. Those things are supposed to take precedence. Okay. I see. I underprepared for today. Finally, we have some extra time, so I can share that idea from the Brisker Rav that I wanted to share with you. The pasuk tells us, and the pasuk is, I don't have it here with me. Oh, I can just, I have got Safaria here. So, oops, no, that's not what I'm looking for. So, Devarim.
Rabbi, can you hear us?
All right, so
I don't
the
think.
pasuk tells us
Can you
in
hear us?
Devarim 13 and 14, Yud Gimel and Yud Gimel and Yud Daled, talking about the mitzvah of honoring Shabbat. This is in the 10 Commandments. Sheishet yamim tavod v'asita kol malachtecha. For 6 days you should work and fulfill all your work. Right? You're supposed to work la avoda. You're supposed to. That's an important word. It means to do labor. Malachtecha. This is also an important word. It means to do malacha. So in your 6 days of your week, you're supposed to do your work. Right? This is according to some of the Yeker Chachamim, Rav Schwab, Rav Monk. This is, by the way, an indication that a Jew should never go on vacation. Okay, I know this is vacation season, so in other words, a person should always work. There should not be a day that you spend a day in the hammock, just sleeping and whatever. Besides your religious occupation, in other words, besides your religious obligations of prayer and mitzvot, etc., you're also supposed to do some labor. You're supposed to do some work every single day. There should not be a day without any work. That's one commentary, but that's not what I wanted to focus on here. But the 7th day of the week is for Hashem. It's Hashem's day. Lo ta'aseh kol malacha. You're not supposed to do any malacha. That's the 39 forbidden labors. I'm not going to list them for you now. If you're very curious, you can look in the Mishnah in Shabbat, chapter 7, Mishnah Bet. So chapter 7, the second Mishnah. Atao v'incha v'techa, you and your son, your daughter, avdecha v'amatecha, your servants, v'shorcha, your cow, kamorcha, your donkey, chobehemtecha, all your animals. Nobody's supposed to do any work for you on Shabbat. Even the non-Jew, and a ger here does not mean convert. A non-Jew who's committed to fulfilling the 7 Noachite laws, who lives in Israel, even that non-Jew should not do any work for you. So they should also rest just like you on this 7th day of the week. Asks the Brisker Rav, and I'm sorry I don't have the source here. I didn't know if I'd be speaking about this. Asks the Brisker Rav, famous question, beautiful question. What does the 7th day of the week have to do with the other days of the week? We're obviously comparing them. So like I said before, one answer is it's supposed to tell you that the 7th day of the week you don't work, but the 6 days of the week you do work. That's all right. That's one answer. But that's not really there's no real mitzvah. There's no real command that you have to work the 6 days of the week. There is such a, Otherwise, all of our retirees would be in trouble, right? It isn't a mitzvah. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of it's a method of living your life. There is such a thing as vacation and rest, et cetera, et cetera. So what does it mean? So says the Brisker Rav. Interesting. How do you know somebody that you don't know? You have two friends, and they come to a party, and they bring along a third friend that you'd never met before, a third person. How do you know anything about this third person? So, of course, first of all, a lot of this is going to be based on generalizations, assumptions. Once you get to actually know the person, you might find out you're totally wrong. And of course, it's important to get to know the person. But meanwhile, before you get to know the person, what can you know based on the fact that your two friends brought this person? If you like your two friends, and if these two friends are good people, hopefully they are, hopefully you don't have friends who aren't good people. So what you can assume, at least at first, is that this third person is also going to be a good person. Why? Because this third person is flanked by two good people. You got a person on the left who's good, person on the right who's good, the person in the middle, probably also good. Good people don't usually hang out with bad people. As opposed to, you have some acquaintances who aren't necessarily good. You try to avoid them, and they come along with a third person without meeting the person, without talking to the person. And of course, these assumptions can be totally wrong. What you'll have to assume at first is that this person should probably not be a good, trusted person. These two not so good acquaintances that you have are bringing along a third person. These two people, let's say you know them to be thieves or liars or whatever, God forbid. So you can assume, at least at first, not knowing anything about this third person, you can assume at first that this third person is also a thief or a liar. Why? Because of how you know these other people who are flanking this person. Says the Brisker Rav, you know your Shabbat by your other days of the week. Your 6 days of the week tell you about your Shabbat. Because your Shabbat and your 6 days of the week are related to each other. 6 days you do your work, and your Shabbat rest is you're not doing your work. How you do your work is how you don't do your work, right? In other words, when you do your work, what do? You study, you practice, you're honest, you focus. You do the same thing on your Shabbat. You study, you're not work, right? If you have to study for work, let's say you're an engineer. So on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you have to study graphs, you have to study pictures, you have to use some sort of software. On Shabbat, okay, you can't use software. On Shabbat, you do whatever you have to do to not study those graphs. Don't study those maps. Don't look at those kinds of pictures. On Shabbat, you study not work things. You study Torah things. You study the Parsha. You study the Daf. You study Gemara, Halacha, whatever it is you study it with the same intensity, with the same concentration that you used on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Shabbat is not a day of rest, meaning it's a day to sleep. Shabbat is a day of rest. It's your day to use your skills that you've honed in on your profession. You use those same skills. You use that same talent. You use that same concentration and ethics for Shabbat, for Hashem. That's what it means. That's how you compare your 6 days of the week to your Shabbat. You make your Shabbat and your 6 days of the week brothers and sisters that way. You marry them together. You bring together your week with your Shabbat, and your Shabbat then blesses your week. That's also an important thing. Mikor habracha, we call it in Lechadodi. The Shabbat is the source of blessing. For the rest of the week, your blessing comes from how you kept your Shabbat. And that'll give us hopefully it'll give us all some chizuk. This next coming Shabbat is not just the regular Shabbat; it's Shabbat Nachamu, which is the beginning of our comfort. We'll need 7 weeks of comfort to repair our self-esteems from these 3 weeks of desolation. And not only is it Shabbat Nachamu, it's also Tu B'Av, very special holy day. And hopefully we all get from this we accept the rays of Hashem's glory on this Shabbat in a way that inspires us all to continue with our week and do wonderful things. I'm going to stop the live share on Facebook and stop the recording. And if you have any questions,